Hello. Whenever I do the video, it just gets very close all of a sudden to my face on the what's it called, tablet. Okay. So I went to weigh in today and I have put on a pound, so I'm 10 stone 9 pounds. I have been on plan all week. I haven't gone over my sins. So it's just one of them fluctuations. I feel that I'm going to have, if I actually want to get down to 10 stone, I'm going to have to make an actual difference in terms of my daily eating. I thought that because I was struggling quite for a while, going over my sins, etc., and that sort of thing, I thought that once I'd got myself on plan week in, week out, that it would start to drop down, but it doesn't seem to be doing so, so I think I'm going to have to have a little change around. I've changed my Healthy Extra Bees. I used to have one in the morning with my fruit and fibre, but I think I'm going to change it to have the nuts in the afternoon with the kids. I had had some sins with some Savvy Sin kind of crisps. They're kind of what they're called, some bites, and those types of things. But I think I'm going to have now the nuts instead. Sorry, trying not to take it so wobbly. I'm going to have the nuts instead for my Healthy Extra Bee in the evening. Just because trying to change around in terms of it's getting a bit colder now, and trying to increase the fats again to make sure it's not too making sure I'm not too low fat, and yeah, so I'm changing that to see. I've done that for the last 3 or 4 days, I suppose, and then we'll see how that goes in terms of see how that pans out in long term. Changing up the Healthy Extra Bees. I've what else? And I've also tried to make sure that I have increased my kind of carbohydrate free foods, because I'm starting to get cravings for kind of, it's cold, it's miserable, I'm kind of going to get cravings again for sugary comfort foods. Not kind of intolerable, but my brain's starting to go that way, so I'm just trying to make sure that I've got pasta and rice, and I'm making sure that I've got potatoes, and trying to make sure that they're kind of natural comfort foods are being included. I'm trying to sort of put a bit more focus on them, because sometimes during the week I might have chilli, but I wouldn't have the rice with it, I'd just have the chilli, and I'm sort of a vague attempt to kind of increase the speed food naturally, but I just thought I'm going to have my rice, because I think it's a good idea, especially in the colder months, to kind of just have a bit more of that. It's brown rice, so it's complex carbohydrates, etc., so it's just a little extra carbohydrate, in my opinion, for me. I do tend to find that if I have too many speed foods, I just get a bit hungry. It doesn't really feel like I really benefit well on having a balanced sort of, where I've got some carbohydrates, some protein, and some speed foods. I mean, I know also speed foods do have some carbohydrate in them, but they're quite low. I suppose, they're not quite as, I don't know, starchy. So yeah, I'm trying to make sure that I'm kind of pushing towards that. I also, one of the things that's been crossing my mind over the last week was the trying to get this right in my head, the realisation of the way in which I used to not think about things if they were not either useful to me at the point, or if they worried me, or if they were something that the kids, I think they're okay, or if they were not something that I thought, chairs on toes. Okay, I'm going to pause and then I shall recontinue. I shall pause the bath and get them in the bath, and I shall be right back. See you in a bit. Hey, I've still got a bit more time on the bath really before I still got a bit more to fill up. So, yeah, it was looking at, as I do, I kind of go on for little tangents of things, and it was looking at a statement someone had written about how, in a biblical sense, joy was what God's work is. And that might not necessarily be something you want to do, but it's joyful, and so if you complete it, it's joyful. And happiness was something that was from you outwards, so something you wanted to do rather than God's work. And I think in my head it sort of clicked that in order to be next to godliness, the joy had to be there, and that's it. In my head it just represented the way in which I used to feel that I wasn't enjoying myself, but I had to pretend that I was in order to fulfill some thing in my head, or status quo, or avoid conflict, or kind of, you know. So for example, it would be something like so my partner used to always want to have takeouts, and I didn't want to have those, because firstly I'm vegetarian, and secondly I didn't really like to have them because they're quite expensive, and thirdly I didn't really like to have them because it was always quite expensive. No, because of the calories in them, they're quite fatty. Hello. Do you like it? I got myself some new pyjamas. Some pyjamas. I'm going to try and be good and put pyjamas on again. I'm just going to pause and get going. Okay. I'm going to try and be a bit less close, a bit intense.
Is it the day for the blue basket?
Yes, please. I think that blue basket's still got some clean clothes in there, so you'll have to tip it out, because otherwise you'll just be putting it on the dirt in the clean pile. Okay. Good boy. Okay, so yeah, so my partner always used to want to have takeout, and I wouldn't really kind of fuss too much about it. I'd kind of just agree with it, even though I didn't particularly want to have it, just to kind of, you know, be amenable, or to be kind of go with the flow of things. And I think in my head I'd accumulated this habit of just going with something I thought I ought to do rather than something I actually wanted to do. And more specifically, that sensation of dampening down your own ambitions, dampening down your own thoughts, dampening down your own wants and needs, and dampening down the want to have something for yourself, or the confidence that you might want, or any of those things. That bit where you just, it's okay, yeah, you carry on, it's fine. And just having just kind of keeping it all quashed. It kind of suddenly made me aware that was happiness that I was trying to access. And because there's a bit of me that felt that it was wrong, that it was me wanting it. I'm not religious in any way, but it's like that I couldn't, I wasn't allowed to access it, so it was shut away in my brain. And I think because my partner did, because I said about it to my partner, and he said, well, one of the problems is that also, not only was I doing that, but I wasn't replacing it with anything. So for example, people who maybe shut away that part of them that wants these things for happiness' sake, they would replace it with the feeling that they're doing something good for God. they would have joy because they're doing God's work. Whereas I'm not religious, so I wouldn't have anything with that. So I'm basically taking away my happiness and not providing back anything else in it. I wasn't sort of substituting it for anything else. And I think it was shown to me because, in hindsight, because when I went to Truncheonbury, I felt like when I was basically in Truncheonbury, I helped out, and I was a backstage kind of steward, manager or something, like, I was managing the backstage steward, so I was helping them out, make sure everybody was where they wanted to be. And I did it for the 3 days, and it was the most exciting thing ever. It was so lovely, so out of my kind of normal day-to-day life. I was there from 9:30 in the morning through to 12 o'clock at night every day, and it was just glorious. Meeting new people, trying out new things, stretching my brain and mind, and having to kind of really cope with people who are uncomfortable, and helping to kind of really mediate between people and really use my brain to its kind of full capacity. When I got back after that, it was such a culture shock, and I just felt that I'd been let out of my box, and I had to try and, I kept saying to people, I feel like I've been let out now, and I'm going to have to put myself back in. I'm going to have to put myself back in this box, because I can't, live my life the way I was living it there. And I think I've never quite fully got back in my box. It's not happened. I've not quite managed to do that. There's always that element there now where I'm aware of the things I could achieve. I'm aware of the stuff I achieved on those 3 days, and I'm also obviously aware of the things that it allowed me to carry on doing. So we're also involved in other events, and there's lots of things that now I realise and I can see. I mean, obviously I've always been interested in opportunities, but now there's actual ways in which I can actually do them, instead of it's all just kind of fantasy in my head. There's going to be real life ways in which I can actually be involved in things that interest me. And I think for food wise, I think I used my food to shove away all of these thoughts, dampen down the numb the fact that I wasn't overly happy with what I was doing, numb the fact that I wasn't able to take advantage of opportunities that were there because of obviously babysitting situations, or it's right, going back early on, and when you're breastfeeding your children, you literally can't go and do anything else without them, especially if they don't take a bottle, and you're limited because of the fact that they want you and they need you, and so therefore it makes your heart's torn, because you want to be with them, but also you want to live a life as well. And so it's I understand why my brain would have shut off these things. So I can understand exactly the premise of it, but I can really there was always a bit of me that didn't fully understand how someone can be so kind of like ignorant of their predicament. And I think it wasn't until I've been through what I've been through, the depression, and they're kind of having to shut off parts of my brain in order to cope, just kind of get on with it, shut away the thoughts of things, and mollify my brain with food and loud music and techniques, and try and make things easier, and try and channel in I remember doing the kind of the fly lady, a lot of the things she did with tidying up your house in parts and things. And I remember kind of sort of bless your house in certain bits, and trying to channel the joy that I could gain from tidying my house, and it has not worked over the time. I've really pushed hard to try and get the satisfaction and joy out of those things, and I had to concede in the end, and say, look, there are things that need to be done, and I will happily do them, but I cannot rely on them for my sense of achievements. I recognise that about myself, and again, I'll wash the pots up, but I have to recognise that I cannot rely on that for my sense of achievement. It's not how my brain works. And I think since I've understood that, and since I've understood that I'm not going to go back in my box, and since I've understood the fact that I am very, very capable of hiding everything from myself and ignorant to my predicament for purposes to kind of get through each day, or cope in a kind of trying to kind of keep the status quo, or try and keep as a kind of equilibrium, or keep a kind of keep out of conflict. I can understand why my brain's done it, but I also understand that since I've let go of that part, the food has followed. So because I'm no longer having to bolster eat, because I'm no longer having to do the pickup, my partner now picks up the kids and feeds them, and then I come home later. I'm not having to put myself through that. I don't have to bolster eat. Since that realization that all is that's not. I know I couldn't have done it in the past because my partner was not willing to pick the children up in the past. Things have changed, and so therefore things have happened, and it's not like I could have magically taken these issues away in the past. It wouldn't have happened like that. But I have to recognise that part of the reason why my brain is now changing and allowing me to not bolster eat is because of the situation has changed. I've come out of my box and I've said, no, I don't want to do this. I've said, I feel uncomfortable about this. I don't want to be around these foods. I don't want to have to be put in this situation. I don't want to be in a trigger situation. I don't want to be around chocolate. I don't want chocolate in the house. And until I've actually managed to kind of bring those things to the fore, it's just not quite happened. I mean, it's pretty special to be able to kind of have these cravings come and pass in a very easy way, in terms of I can recognise them as thoughts, but they are not thoughts I necessarily have to act on. And I can deal with the underlying issue instead of instead of having to go over my sins or go over my healthy extras, which I suppose is going over my sins. There are ways in which I can do it. So as I say about the carbohydrate thing, if I am craving, then there's other ways in which I can boost my satiety. I can make sure I've got extra protein in the meal. I can make sure that the food I'm eating is super tasty. The colder weather kicks in, and we put a lot more chili flakes in our meals now, and I'm sure that as the weather changes, as it all gets warm again at the other end, I'm sure that there'll be a lot more kind of different types of foods. But right now it's very carb heavy, very protein heavy, and even the vegetables that we use are quite carb heavy, so there's lots more, like even the speed food is, so it's plenty of carrots and swede and plenty of those butternut squash chunks and all of that kind of stuff, so that the food's quite starchy still, and that really has helped. And it's been really good. So next week I'm going to very much continue on what I do anyway. I'm going to just swap out my healthy extra B so that I'm having my nuts in the evening. And I am not going to focus on weight loss I'm just going to carry on focusing on food optimizing, because I know I'm in my target anyway. I know I'm in my BMI. I'm 10 stone 9. It's not a problem. I'm healthy. I'm a healthy weight. So, and I do not want to go in a position where I feel like I'm dieting and then totally go off the rails and put on 3 pounds. I don't want to do that. So I'm just going to let it naturally play. I'm just going to do that single change this week where I swap out my Healthy Extra B from the morning into the afternoon snack, and that's it. No other changes. Just see how that one pans out. That one also isn't to do with weight loss. That's just to do with the fact that I feel like I should have a bit more fats in my diet. And I'm really, really proud of myself because I've had big packets of Brazil nuts in, big packets of cashew nuts in, big packets of almonds in, and I've been able to take some, put them in the bowl, have them with my fruit, and I've had those Sunbite crisps, but we've had we share one packet between 3 of us, so like a few each, and I've been able to not just eat out of the nut packet. So I'm really proud of myself that I've got those in my house, and because that's the reason why I took them out in the first place. I had to go to small individual portions, and I've actually changed my head enough to be able to be around those types of food and not bolster eat and not binge eat. And it makes me feel very safe. And we've also had a loaf of wholemeal bread in our fridge for 3 weeks. It's for some reason it's not gone mouldy. I don't know whether that's because of all the preservatives or whatever, but it's not gone mouldy yet. And it still hasn't been eaten, and I've not been, tempted to have, because I was going down the route of peanut butter and wholemeal bread a lot, and for some reason everything's settled down that I'm not even tempted to have that, and it's okay. My brain's okay. So yeah, I'm going to pause here and upload because we're already on 22 minutes, and I just need to go and prepare for the kids because they'll be coming out. Benji will be coming out of his bath soon, and I need to go and prepare so that I can read them their stories, because one of the nice things about these dark nights is the fact that the kids aren't just kind of bouncing off the walls still. It's very much nighttime. And when it's summertime and doesn't get dark till 10 o'clock, it can be quite tricky to say, no, it is bedtime. Whereas now at least it's definitely bedtime because it's dark. So we try and sneak in some early nights just because I think it's a little extra sleep, little extra half-hour sleep on the regime. There's always quite handy, I think, some more nap times. And then the other thing I was saying about my pyjamas that I got some kind of fleecy type pyjamas, which one of the big things I have is I do not like pyjamas whatsoever, and I tend to sleep in my clothes because I don't wear them then the next day. I take them off and put fresh clothes on, but I like to be warm, and I do not like taking my clothes off. I hate it. So I've decided I don't think it's a very good habit to be in. I did break the habit before, and I got some pyjamas, but the pyjamas just were not warm enough, and so I ended up putting another jumper back on and such, and I started getting redressed back again. And I think and the reason why I got some fleecy pyjamas is just because it doesn't really matter if I go to sleep with my clothes. It's not a big deal. I get up in the morning and have fresh clothes on every day, so it's not a matter. It doesn't really matter. But for me, it's a representation of self-care. I'm going to try and implement a bit more nighttime routine where I care about myself and it's like sometimes those points where it feels like it doesn't matter, those are probably the bits where it does matter. And I think in terms of having mental and emotional health and physical health that comes on from that, it's a very, very high priority. And I think especially as I'm involved in quite a fair amount of events and a fair amount of projects, and I've obviously got the shop that we're running, and there's a lot of pressure and a lot of stress, lots of customers that need help and support. And I feel that one of the best ways in which I can do that is to make sure I've got a high level of self-care, a high level of emotional and physical health so that I can deal very successfully with any stress that comes my way. I'm pretty good anyway. I'm quite good at dealing with stress and quite good at dealing with people's problems. I can figure out a way around things, and I don't get too stressed about it, but I can often feel it building. I can often feel accumulation of stress, and it sort of gets you in the chest, and you just think, oh, my life is everything crumbling. And although at that point, that's when it's dangerous to make decisions, and you mustn't make decisions about your lifestyle based on those stress moments. So pajamas are another one of those ways in which I tell myself that self-care should always be at the top of my list, and emotional and physical health should always be at the top of the list. Okay, I'm going to go now and do my jobs, and I will see you all soon. Lots of love, and let's take care of ourselves. Bye.